My name is Stephen Whiteside and this is Spargo's hut. This was built in about 1929 or 1930 by Bill Spargo as a base for his gold prospecting activities. He was looking for a northern continuation of a deep alluvial lead that was being successfully mined by the Kabungra Hydraulic Sluicing Company at Brandy Creek, and he had a theory that he could find the northern continuation of it up here or near here, which is at Golden Point on the opposite side of Swindler's Creek to Mt Loch. And he lived here for a decade or so with some small successes, finding gold but never finding all that much, until in 1940 he discovered a rich gold reef, which didn't prove his theory but was a great discovery nonetheless. In the 1980s, when I first discovered this hut, it was running down. It was falling down, and I successfully nominated it for protection with the Historic Buildings Council in 1988. Andrew Swift was employed by the Hotham Resort Management Board more recently to build a walking track to the hut, and he drew up extensive plans for refurbishment of the hut, but the refurbishment didn't actually take place until this year, when the Resort Management Board worked with Neville Spargo, the great grandnephew of Bill, and the Victorian High Country Huts Association to complete the refurbishments, which they did over 2 weekends, I think back in March, and I've come up here to have a look at the refurbishments. And they look pretty good. It looks a lot better than it did 5 or so years ago. The hut was built by Bill, as I say, but he was assisted very much by his brother Cecil, who was a builder and cabinet maker. And there are a number of interesting details which you can see, such as these windows, which have these flashings which protect them from wind and water, and are a cut above what you find in the average cattleman's hut. Not that I mean any offence to the cattleman's hut, cattlemen's huts, many of which were also very well built. What you can see here is a natural spring. That's being diverted near to the hut. It's actually dry today, but it often is running. When I first came to the hut in 1982, if my memory serves me correctly, the water was actually flowing through this corner inside the hut itself. And the point of that was that Bill Spargo was here during Black Friday during the 1939 fires and successfully fought the fires inside the hut. He said that as the flames came inside the hut, he doused them with a billy or a bucket of water. He had a black tarry substance called malthoid lining the ceiling to give it water protection, but in the heat it started melting and it was dripping on him and burning him. So he had to put a wooden box on his head to protect his head and shoulders from being burnt. I believe he eventually passed out, but he did manage to walk out several days later. And this was almost the only building in the area to survive the fires. The chalet over at Mt Loch was burnt down, but that's another story. talking to Bill Spargo and Andrew Swift and others, I think I have underestimated just how much the hut was changed after Bill left it. Bill sold the hut when he sold the Red Robin mine in the 1950s after his marriage to Evelyn Piper collapsed. And it was bought by Harold Madison, who lived in Bright, who had an interest in gold prospecting and hydraulic sluicing particularly. And my guess is that Madison made quite a few alterations to this hut. I've always been intrigued by this patch of corrugated iron over the rusted area. The workers in March said there was evidence of an old hearth under here, and it looks as though the original fireplace was on this side wall here, and the heat damaged the coating of the galvanised iron and allowed it to rust, and it's subsequently been patched. Which brings us to the chimney. An early photo from about 1950, when Bill definitely did own the hut, clearly shows there was no chimney. And the other interesting feature of the chimney is that it's covering a window. So my guess is that Madison built the chimney and took away the old wood stove from that side wall and built a new hearth down the end wall. If we come around the side here, you can't see it all that clearly, but the chimney is actually covering up a window, which also supports the idea that the chimney was not an original feature of the hut. I don't think you can see it. You can't really see it. You might be able to. We'll go inside and it's much more clear there. So as you walk around, you're inside the hut now, obviously.